May 5, 2016, 5 years ago today, Red Bull took a daring choice that irrevocably transformed Verstappen's life and has impacted Formula One ever since. So in today's video, we're going to discuss how Max Verstappen revolutionized F1 racing since his debut. If you want to find out, stay tuned till the end of the video. Verstappen was promoted from junior team Toro Rosso to replace Daniil Kvyat with the former world champions at the age of 18. And with just 23 races under his belt. It is unusual for a team to change a driver after 4 races in a season, much alone one who stood on the podium only 18 days before. But Red Bull remained unflappable in the face of criticism from other drivers in the paddock. Such was their belief in F1's youngest ever driver's skill. Martin Brundle supported Red Bull. He declared as early as Verstappen's third race in F1 that he was showcasing all the hallmarks of a Senna, of a Schumacher. Dubbed the driver move a masterstroke since it allowed Red Bull to keep a driver desired by rivals Mercedes and Ferrari in-house. Even the most fervent Verstappen fan could not have expected what happened during his debut Grand Prix weekend as a Red Bull driver. Verstappen, the son of ex-F1 driver Jos, was thrust into the pressure cooker that is an F1 qualifying session just over a week after being confirmed as Daniel Ricciardo's new teammate. He was 0.4 seconds slower than Ricciardo, which was understandable, but he still qualified 4th on the grid. Verstappen was keen to keep the Ferraris behind him at bay on race day, and despite his grid position, he was probably not dreaming about a first F1 podium. The race was turned on its head by a memorable collision between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, the championship contenders for a dominating Mercedes. It was now a Red Bull vs Ferrari duel, and it seemed that the team's main drivers, Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel, would battle for victory when both drivers pitted first. But it turned out that a two-stop strategy was really more advantageous, and thus Verstappen faced off against Kimi Räikkönen in a battle for victory. Räikkönen, an F1 world champion 18 years older than Verstappen, attacked the Red Bull on practically every lap. But Verstappen hung on for a historic victory thanks to incredible car placement and maturity. He was no longer only F1's youngest driver, he was also the sport's youngest winner, and the first driver since Fernando Alonso in 2010 to win on his team debut. This must rate highly in terms of biggest stories in the world of sport, Brundle said. A teenager turns up, handles the pressure with world champions snapping at his heels, barely knows the car, and delivers an absolutely extraordinary performance. Verstappen ended with 4 podiums and 6 top 5 finishes in his first 8 races with Red Bull. Verstappen imagined a drive that is arguably even more well-known than Spain at the conclusion of his first season, rebounding from 16th in a Brazilian GP reign to the 3rd position. That was one of the best drives I've seen in Formula One, hailed Red Bull boss Christian Horner. But for all his potential and instant effect, putting pressure on Ricciardo from the start, Verstappen was still a very raw F1 driver, with errors and doubts about his behaviour and driving style aplenty. Verstappen forced Räikkönen off the 200-mile-per-hour Kemmel Straight during the 2016 Belgian Grand Prix. Räikkönen suggested Verstappen will create a massive accident if he did not modify his ways. As much as we like his impetuosity, it's refreshing but it's dangerous, said Mercedes boss Toto Wolff. Verstappen, in a typically belligerent fashion, argued that concerns about his strategy were a big lie. However, after a near miss between Max and Hamilton in October of that year, the Verstappen rule was implemented to prohibit drivers from moving under braking while defending. Talk about influence in your first year. While Red Bull was uncompetitive for most of the next season, Verstappen maintained his pace, beating Ricciardo in qualifying over a season and picking up 2 more race wins in Malaysia and Mexico towards the end of the year. But he also had his fair share of mishaps. First lap collisions come to mind in Spain, Austria, and Singapore. Verstappen had a less than stellar start to the 2018 season, crashing or making costly errors in all 6 races. During the Canadian Grand Prix, which Verstappen joined after a high-profile collision with Ricciardo in Baku and a qualifying accident in Monaco, the then 20-year-old collided with a journalist who questioned him about his incident-prone streak. "I get really tired of all the questions," Verstappen said. "If I get any more, I might headbutt someone." He was joking, we assume. Jokes aside, on a more serious note, we will appreciate it if you guys like the video and hit the subscribe button to support us. Thank you. Verstappen, to his credit, never really modified his driving style. Aggressive in attack and tenacious in defense, and still had a massive upturn in form after Monaco. In the second part of 2018, he won in Austria, dominated Ricciardo to become Red Bull's leading driver, and established himself as one of F1's top drivers. But another dramatic occasion awaited Max in the season's last race. While leading the Brazilian GP, Verstappen collided with Esteban Ocon as the Racing Point driver attempted to unlap himself on softer tyres. Verstappen finished second and assaulted Ocon after the race, forcing him into the garage. During the press conference, he stated, "I hope I can't find him now in the paddock because that guy has a effing problem." The FIA fined Verstappen 2 days of public service for his actions. During the summer break of the 2018 season, Ricciardo startled the F1 world and Red Bull by announcing his departure from the team at the end of the year. Not to Mercedes or Ferrari, but to Renault, a middle company with a vehicle that is much slower than Red Bull. Whatever the reason for the transfer, Ricciardo claims he knew he would never be Red Bull's top dog while Verstappen was there, while Horner said the Australian was running away from a fight. It helped shape the mature and amazingly consistent but quick Verstappen we know today. Verstappen, as he was put into the seat in Barcelona 2016, was now thrust into a team leader position, with not only Red Bull but also engine suppliers Honda, who are now powering the UK-based team, relying on him. He has obviously risen to the occasion. While Red Bull has not always been as competitive as its competitors, Verstappen has done more than enough to demonstrate that he is ready for a prolonged championship challenge. Throughout the first half of the 2019 season, he seldom pushed a wheel out of position and won the Austrian GP, battling furiously but fairly to shove away Charles Leclerc in a race-winning move, while he mastered the wet conditions to win 2 races later in Germany. Meanwhile, his superiority over new teammate Pierre Gasly prompted another mid-season driver move at Red Bull. Alex Albon did somewhat better, but only marginally. In fact, Verstappen has not been out-qualified by a teammate since 2018, when Sergio Perez defeated him in Imola earlier that year. Verstappen was perhaps even stronger than the previous year in 2020, battling Mercedes alone as the Ferraris and a second Red Bull fell out of contention, with the exception of a mechanical issue in Austria. He finished on the podium in all 7 races, including defeating the quicker Mercs at Silverstone. A morale-boosting pole position and win in Abu Dhabi gave Verstappen and Red Bull all the impetus they needed, moving into a pivotal 2021 season. Last season, while Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were engaged in one of the most intense title races in Formula One's 7-decade history, Leclerc was squabbling with midfield runners to score solid but unspectacular points totals in Ferrari machinery that was fundamentally incapable of allowing him to compete for wins. But the 2022 season has heralded a regulatory change that has transformed the way F1 races are handled, and which has played perfectly into Leclerc's hands. To combat an issue that has plagued the previous era of racing, lack of downforce, all 10 teams were compelled to radically modify their vehicles. Previously, while closely following the vehicle in front, F1 cars lost a considerable amount of their aerodynamic effectiveness, making following at high speeds very difficult and overtaking unusual. The regulations were amended so that the new vehicles could potentially follow one another more closely, allowing drivers to race faster. After 2 races, F1 appears to have nailed its new rulebook. Leclerc and Verstappen have spent repeated circuits exchanging the lead back and forth, battling around every curve in a battle of wits in which both men have used deception and flamboyance to try to fool their opponents into a mistake. Neither has been able to take the lead since the ease with which they can follow one another means that they are seldom more than a few car lengths apart. Max Verstappen has history on his side and another Formula One title on the horizon. According to history, Max Verstappen will become a 2-time world champion this year when he wins the next few races. Despite the fact that Max Verstappen is about to turn 25, he is already regarded as a veteran, having made his Formula One debut almost 7 years ago. That is the thing about youth. Verstappen began at an early age and gradually evolved to become the sport's main figure. He had only won 10 races in his Formula One career up until last year, but from last season forward he achieved a level that has placed him way above the others. However, he has progressed much more this season, displaying maturity on several occasions. He is not always racing for victory, and he is willing to play the long game by settling for a podium place if required. This technique implies that he is capable of beginning 10th and finishing ahead of his competitors, as shown in Hungary. No one in Formula One history has ever surrendered such a large lead at this point in the season. What are your thoughts on Max's career so far? Please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of our incredible videos. Keep an eye out for the next video. Bye for now.